My name is Esther Moshiri from eMentor in Africa. Very excited to have you all in this virtual space. We thank God that we have been provided an opportunity, as much as it's sad that we are all going through what I would call a lockdown, or they call a lockdown. I think it's also a perfect opportunity to take advantage of all of us being home and doing something that is useful. Useful in that we all get to learn, to talk to each other, to speak about issues that are affecting us, are affecting the youth of this country. This is a series of almost daily sessions that we have. We call them the Mentors Parlour, but we have a team of who are called Magnificent Six. We are 6 mentors that came together to go through issues that were raised by youth at a time when we spoke on radio, and we had an overwhelming cry from young people across the country, raising issues of what they are facing. And we've addressed some of them, but we continue addressing them because we can't exhaust the topics within the 1 hour that we give ourselves. But in that list of asks and questions, one of the topics that came up very highly is that the youth were disturbed with addiction. So some of them were either addicted to alcohol, drugs, sex, and anything else that you can think about that people get addicted to. And so Rachel Mukuhe, who is our co-host today, reached out to a wonderful woman. I'm so happy that we share a name, Esther Nina, who has a life story that she would like to share with us today. I am very excited because sometimes issues of addiction, mental health, depression are things that people hide and don't want to talk about. But listening to Esther today, I am sure it will give us an opportunity, first, either to deal with ourselves in case we are going through such issues, but at the same time to know how to reach out to someone else. I will not go beyond that introduction. This is a recorded session, so we will be very happy to share with you the audio. So as our instructions say, kindly provide us with your email address and we will send you the recording by tomorrow. For now, Madam Mukuhe Macharia, tafadhali karibu and take off from now. I will continue moderating the session, admitting people into the parlor, and perhaps picking some of the questions that will be asked. Karibu, Rachel.
All right, thank you, Esther. Everybody, welcome. Thank you so much for making the time to join us this evening. So Esther has said a lot of it, that we have Esther Nina, who will be our guest today. You know, she'll be talking to us around you know, issues of addiction, and but what I want to join this to is a session we'd had about 2 weeks ago. There's a session we did on self-awareness, and I want us, as we go through this, some of the things we need to remember from that session. We talked about habit, and we said I am a habit, yeah, and we talked about being proactive, having the end in mind. And being proactive is that, you know, acknowledging that I am in control, I am in charge, I should respond instead of react, and also I am the change agent. So as we do this, even as we go through this session, let's think about our role in that way, in the way that I am a habit, yeah, and to be effective, I am proactive, and then having the end in mind. We talked about have the end in mind. What is the end of all this? You know, even from this session, what do we have in the end of mind? It could be something for us or something for somebody else that we would need to reach out. Then also, fast things fast. You know, what comes fast? So I thought to just, you know, to want to connect this session on that issue of its self-awareness, increasing our self-awareness for our own sake, for our own growth, and also to reach out yeah, from the inside out, because I guess change has to happen to us first and then to happen to other people. So at this juncture, I want to welcome Esther, and also we have some new people in the house. Welcome, Sagao. I think it's the first time you're joining us, and I think also Paul said he was here for the first time. And anybody else who I cannot, who I'm not acknowledging, welcome. We have the chat there, and how we're going to go through the three discussion. We're going to have question. It will be like a discussion, which I'll ask some questions, and Esther will be able to answer them. Yeah, so let's get into it. So at this point, I want to welcome you, Esther. You can introduce yourself, and then we can go on to it. We can start, by talking about, in this context, as we have this discussion, what is addiction? But you're welcome and introduce yourself.
Thanks, Mukohi. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, thanks, Mukohi, and thanks, Esther, my namesake. It's really a pleasure for me to be here to share the little knowledge I have on addiction, and hope that it will be able to help somebody somewhere. Yeah.
All right, so then I think we could go on to the discussion for the, some of the things we wanted to know. Perhaps Esther, you could tell us, what does it mean to be addicted, and what, what really is addiction, and how can we, what does it mean to be addicted, and can even something like doing excessive work be categorized as addiction? Maybe you could just give us some background around that.
Right, thanks. So basically, addiction is about your body and mind. And so your body and mind badly needs or wants something in order for it to work right. You can't, in your mind, you can't do without it. So when you are addicted to something, it means you reach the point where you believe you can't live without it. And the thing that you are addicted to is causing you problems, and you can see those problems, but you still go back to it. You still want to do that same very thing. So it's a bit psychological and physical, because sometimes it affects your body when you're talking about drugs and alcohol and food and things like that. So an addict has gone through some stages, and by the time they reach that point, really, when they don't have that thing they're addicted to, their mind is going crazy because they're just trying to find ways to get it. And when they get it, they misuse it, and it messes them up. You can be addicted to drugs, to alcohol, to gambling, to food, to cigarettes. The point being is that you reach the point where you're dependent on this thing for yourself, or so you believe, and you can't do without it, even when you know it is making repercussions or causing you problems in your life.
So why do we get addicted? What are some of the causes?
I think the best way to explain that is that addiction it goes in phases. You don't just wake up one morning and you're addicted to food or you're addicted to alcohol. It's a whole process. So normally you go through different stages. The first stage would be, I'll maybe use alcohol, gambling, drugs as an example. So in the beginning, obviously you don't take any alcohol. You have no idea what it is. That's normally the abstinence stage, where you haven't really tasted whatever it is. And then you go to the second stage where you're experimenting, because I'm hearing people drink, let me try and drink. I'm hearing people gamble and make money, let me try and gamble. So you're experimenting. You have been told about it. You have seen people doing the same thing. And so you experiment it yourself. And as you experiment it, you're not addicted yet. You're just trying. I'm just trying a glass of wine. I'm just trying one drug of Bangi. It's not harmful. I just want to feel what is this people are talking about. And then you move to the next stage where that same thing, now you start saying, oh, actually, it wasn't so bad. So let me have it again. So that's really like the social stage. And it now becomes, you find friends or people who use the same thing and you do it together. So it's more like a social thing. So as if I use drinking and using drugs, you find other people who are doing the same, so you keep doing it. And then you move to the next stage where it becomes a regular thing because you're enjoying it. You're not having any problems. You're still going to school. You're still working. Really, it's still fine. And then now it becomes regular. So regular means maybe as I was drinking socially, I was drinking on weekends. And then now, when it becomes regular, it's becoming a routine. So this same thing, I'm gambling every day. I'm drinking every day. I'm taking drugs every day. I'm eating too much food every day. I'm working too much every day. So it becomes regular. It becomes routine for you. It is part of you. And then now you move to the next stage where it becomes a problem because you're doing it regularly, you're doing it constantly, and now you start seeing problems in your life. You're gambling too much, you're stealing money to gamble. You're drinking too much, you're missing work, you're missing school. You're using drugs, you're not able to focus. So now that same thing that you have been using all the time is now causing problems in your life. And you refuse to see that same thing is the one that is causing those problems. So there are many people who maybe at this stage, you're drinking so much, you're not focusing at work, and your boss is complaining, and you still say, no, my boss is being unfair, because you're not seeing that it's the alcohol that's messing you. You're using other reasons, even as far as saying, if you had a wife like mine, you would drink. If you start justifying, and you're in denial of the fact that you're getting addicted. And then you finally reach the last stage, which is full dependency. If it's chemicals, you're chemically dependent on the drug, on the alcohol, on the gambling. You cannot literally do without it on a single day. So it's in phases. And what also happens is the reason we get to it in the first place could be another reason. So maybe you lost your job. Maybe you're going through a difficult time. And when you took that drink, or when you smoked that bang, or when you started gambling, it gave you a high, it gave you a nice feel to forget about the issues you're going through. And as you continued using, you start using that substance as a way to cope with whatever it is that you're going through. So it could be any reason why you started in the beginning, but it progresses. Addiction progresses until you reach that last stage where you simply cannot do without it. Everything is a mess. You've hit rock bottom. You have no idea what to do. And in your mind, like I said, it's psychological. It's you believe that since I don't know what to do about it, let me just continue and do what I know best. So that's how it starts.
Okay, all right. Wow, yeah, so we see it's, from what you're saying, it's like progression, and it goes on and on until now the body needs it, right? So what are so what should I be careful about? Like what should I look out for? Like if perhaps maybe I'm a social drinker and perhaps I'm stressed, and so maybe I'm drinking a little bit more than I should, or even like during this COVID time, I was talking, somebody was saying, I mean, if you're having your glass of wine, sometimes you want to have, there's a lot more time to have that glass of wine. And so I was just wondering, what are some of the things to look out for, just to, in terms of, to look out for in terms of addiction?
I think the most obvious signs is when you reach the problem stage. So now you're getting problems. So I've been working so well, I go to work on time, I do my things properly. Suddenly, I'm getting later and I'm not even bothered that I'm late to work, or I don't even show up at work. So when problems start showing up, you know that you have a problem. The only issue is that with addiction, this person who is addicted is in denial. They can't see that. They cannot see that it's a problem. You are facing it. Your house has been locked. You have lost your job. Your wife has left you. Your family is annoyed with you, but you still cannot see it because you are in denial. It's very hard to face, but the best way to do it is those people around you who care for you should try and get you help. And the best way to help an addict is to get somebody else who has been through that same thing, or a professional, to help them deal with their addiction, to help them reach the understanding that you have reached a point where, yes, okay, you can get help and you can get out of it. And the reason of getting help is for them to understand that they can get out of it. The problem with addiction or even alcoholism is that when you reach that point, you believe all is lost. There's no hope. No one is talking to me. No one is picking my calls. No one is interested in me. I've lost my job. It's a hopeless place. It's helpless. Let me just continue and do what is best. So those around the addict should not give up on them, but try to get them help. The problem we do is that you start stigmatizing them. You're annoyed with them. You say, why can't you just stop? It's not as easy as that. You can't just stop. It's progressive. They can't wake up one day and stop drinking, or stop gambling. So the people around them need to understand that it's a disease and this person is sick. And because they are sick, you get them help so that they can get better. But instead, you will just ignore. I'm sure if I asked most of you here and told you, if you are out there during the day and you met a drunk on the street near your house and he's there on the ditch, are you going to help him? Or are you going to say, "Why?" and you just walk away? Or, we don't reach out. We say it's a gone case, it's about moral values. These people just don't know. They can't stop. They're just being irresponsible. And that's not the case. By the time you reach the stage of addiction, you truly need help to get out of that. And so it's for us to create awareness that the addict can get better. The alcoholic can get better. The gambler can get better. The person who's addicted to food can get better. Instead of judging them, let's help them.
Okay. So how do I'm just thinking, for example, what you've talked about, this person who's out there, what should be our reaction? What would be the right thing to do? Like, we'll find somebody. Yes, I'll find somebody and they're drunk in the ditch and I'll be, oh, well, yeah, but I think it's somebody else's business. How can we go about being proactive at that level? Or, yes, or even if it's somebody closer to us, how would we do it?
If it's somebody close to you, I think that first, it's to also show some compassion. Most people who are addicts or alcoholics or whatever addiction they're going through, they feel the world is against them. Nobody loves them. And all that people do is shout at them, complain to them, and just tell them to stop. We need to show them love and need to understand that they are sick. I see somebody who's drunk, you try and see if I know them. I'll try and reach out to their family and try and explain to them, that your brother can get help. It's all is not lost. Yeah, instead of judging them and being annoyed with them, we need to reach out to those who know them to show them that they can get help.
Okay. All right. And then now, in terms of getting help, and perhaps you could also just share with us maybe your experience about your experience about it. That part of having people a support mechanism and getting help. I hear that is very critical. Yeah, maybe you could give us a little bit, of your background or your experience around it.
Okay, I'll just give a little bit about myself, having understood this whole thing especially from the alcohol point of view. As I said, normally addicts or alcoholics or any addiction, there's an underlying reason why you got to that stage in the very first place. I've had experience with issues with alcohol, and many years, 13 years ago, my husband passed away. And when he passed away, I was left with a 2-year-old daughter, and life just became a living nightmare and a dark place, which I just didn't want to live anymore. And so I got into depression because I didn't want to talk about it. I didn't want to deal with anybody. And when I discovered a drink, when I got high, I would forget about all my problems. And it was better to forget than to be sober and remember that he is gone and I don't know what to do next. That was my reason. And but not knowing what alcoholism is, I continued to drink, and not knowing that it's progressive, I continued to drink. And people around me, not knowing that they can help me, decided to isolate me. So I even moved away and said, you know what, I don't care about anyone, including my own mother and my own family. Let me go to this far place where nobody knows me, and I leave it to God. And in the meantime, I will continue drinking because that's what I know best. When I'm drunk, I forget. And when I'm sober, I remember. And so I go back to the drink because I don't want to remember. So it becomes a cycle. And in the process, it became progressive. And as with any addiction, there are very many effects. When you drink, when you're an alcoholic or when you're a drug addict or any other addictions, there are effects that the alcohol does to your body, physically, mentally, emotionally, and all that. And so for me, the drinking got too much, and I started experiencing blackouts. And blackouts are not when you close your eyes because you have finished your last drink and you black out on the table. No, blackouts are actually, you can go for days and you don't know those days exist. You just remember the last day. I remember is Monday. And when I come to, it was a Thursday, and I'm asking myself, where are those 4 days? I don't believe. And those are the effects of too much of, the alcohol or whatever. I wasn't taking drugs, but I was drinking. And when I got that blackout, I said, no, hey, this is now too much for me. I think I need help. That was me, because that was my hitting rock bottom and saying, no, surely life cannot be like this. I don't know what to do, but I know I need to do something. And lucky for me, I reached out to my sister, and my sister said, I've been waiting to hear that call of saying I need help. And so I was lucky enough that she wasn't coming from a point of, how could you do this? How could you, drink that much? She didn't accuse me. She helped me. She said, fine. What do we do? I said, the only thing I can think of is to go to a rehab. And when she looked for a rehab, and I went to the rehab, and that rehab opened my eyes, and I knew, and I got the help that I had asked for. And when I came out, I said, wow, I can't believe I am feeling normal. I can't believe I don't want to have a drink. I can't believe that it's possible. And so for me, I decided to do whatever I was asked to do when I went through the rehab, and I was able to just continue um, getting in touch with other people like me and getting to support groups and being able to continue to stay sober. I'll actually be 8 years sober on 24th June. It's still a miracle. At the end of the day, again, all these addictions, sometimes it's about you are spiritually sick. You have no connection. You have no belief in anything. To me, I believed God was against me. God took my husband away. I don't want to hear anything about that. You have a long list of justification of why you're like that. But at the end of it all, it does become spiritual in the sense that I was sick. And when I accepted my problem, I was willing to get help and willing to say that at least by the grace of God, I'm still here today, almost 8 years later, still sober. Yes, it's because I went to rehab. Yes, it's because I get support from other people like me. But at the end of the day, it's also by the grace of God. And for accepting that it's just one day at a time. So you get to learn as you deal. I got to learn a lot about myself. I remember Mukuyi, you're talking about self-awareness. So do I know who I am? I know I have an issue with alcohol and I needed help, and I decided to get help. And when I got help, I discovered that no, that is not the end of the world. You become better, you regain all your relationships with your family, your friends, you start working again, you start looking presentable. You're no longer that person who's stigmatized and taken as a drunk. Especially being a mother, it was really tough. So at the end of the day, it's for me personally, even why I agree to speak at forums like this, is to show people from two sides, those who have people that have these problems, that they can help the people they love, and to those who have this same problem of addiction, to tell them there's hope. You're not dead yet until you're dead, but you're not dead yet. Even if you're in the ditch, but you can get out, you can get help. And it's for us who are not addicted or have those problems to be able to reach out and help these people. Sometimes people say you learn that some of these addictions are also genetic. I learned that maybe 40% of the reason that the alcohol progressed in me so fast is because it's part of a gene. When you get addicted, for example, to drugs or alcohol, there's that issue of, you have a craving for taking it more. And that craving, the minute you sip or the minute you take your drug, it just escalates and you want more and more, and it will never satisfy you. Remember, an addiction is you're so dependent on this thing, which is messing you, but you can't do without it. So there's also the physiological side, the chemical side, which of course, if your addiction is very bad, then you need to get professional help from medical experts before you now start dealing with yourself. But like I said, it is always an underlying issue. And if I give my example, I had never gotten help to deal with the death of my husband. I had never gotten to deal. It even went as far as remembering how my dad died. My dad died when I was 12, and I guess again when my husband died, maybe all that affected me. And when I found the alcohol, it was just a way to forget and not deal with it. So going to rehab or getting help is really to understand where you're coming from and what is that underlying issue. Some people, it's a trauma you had as a child. With some people, it's something to do with your work. It could be anything, but you need to deal with that underlying issue so that you don't have to be dependent on any of these substances to deal with the issue that you have. Somebody, I think, okay, I guess we can answer the questions later. I was seeing some comments in the chat. But that is me, and I'm passionate about helping people because, believe me, I don't think I would be alive today if I didn't reach out for help that day when I realized the alcohol was just getting out of hand. Yeah.
All right. Wow. Thanks, Esther. That's a lot, and I think it answers a lot of questions that we're having on the chat. And something that I like that you've said is that part of reaching out. Help is available. So they're reaching out. For you hit the rock bottom and you reached out. And the good thing was that you had a support mechanism around you. You had people around you who loved you. So I think for us as we listen to this is for us to see the both roles we have to play, being there, if it's us with a problem, to know, yes, where would we go for help? Help is available. And then also having, our support mechanism, being supportive to people in our families who are going through perhaps, some of these, going through situations as this. There's a question about somebody asking in terms of, relapse. She says that there's somebody, how can you help somebody who's been in rehab twice, but still addicted to Bangi, and which makes him behave like he has mental illness, and so he goes to rehab and comes out, then gets back into it. What would be your take on that, Esther?
Okay, I'll answer that in two ways. Remember this: if we understand these addictions as being a disease, when somebody has diabetes, for example, and they're diagnosed to have diabetes, they will be told maybe you need to inject yourself with insulin every day. You need to eat certain foods for them to maintain and not be affected by their diabetes. So if I am an alcoholic, I am sick, and I have gone to this rehab. This rehab has told me what to do, and I have accepted. I think first of all, it's the acceptance. Somebody who has relapsed, have they really accepted they are an alcoholic or an addict? If you're still in denial, you'll not move forward. You can't, because you still believe you're okay. At the back of your mind, you're saying, okay, my parents have shouted at me and screamed at me. They have taken me to rehab. Let me just go there and pose for 3 months and make them happy. And when I come out, I will continue with where I was. So a good rehab will try to get you to that point of accepting that you need help and you can get help. But if you don't get to that level of accepting, it will be, even if they went 20 times to rehab, nothing is going to happen. Them themselves, at some point, it comes to the person, the individual. And that's why sometimes, sorry, I focus more on alcohol, but that's why it is easier for somebody who has been through the same thing, the person who's taking bangi, the someone taking alcohol, the person who's gambling a lot. It's easy for someone who's actually been through it to talk to this person than their parents and family who have no clue about what addiction is. Because if I saw my friend, I had a friend I've known for years, and before I entered rehab, I knew she used to drink a lot. In fact, I used to cheat myself that I can't be like her. And when she went to rehab and came out, she was the first person I called after calling me and said, does this rehab really work? But because I had seen my friend and we used to drink together and I saw the way she had changed, I said, hey, okay, what choice? What do I have nothing to lose. Let me try, because I can see it in my friend. So if you get help in the sense of another person who has been through the same thing to help that person you care about, they are more it's easier for them to listen. But you'll be annoyed. They've been stealing from you. You've paid a lot of money for rehab and they're out again drinking. You're so upset. You're not going to change anything. They'll just go back to what they're doing. But everybody with their own different journey. But I think the important thing is, how do you get the person to accept that they are the way they are and that they need help and that there's help available. There is hope for them instead of whatever. So that's what happens. Yeah, so it's the acceptance really. And again, on the other side, there's yes, you're getting help, but the substance you're using has affected your health. Yeah, bangi can affect your brain, can affect your thinking, your decision, whatever. So you need also medical help to see the extent of your addiction. How far has the addiction affected you health-wise? So that a medical doctor or a psychiatrist or a psychologist can be able to help you from that point before you start dealing with now therapy and counseling and all that. So there are many ways, but most places will do a proper checkup for you to be able to see, okay, fine, your problem is bangi, but how bad has this bangi done for you? Some other people have other conditions combined with their addiction. So you find someone has been taking bangi, they see a psychiatrist, discover this person is bipolar. The bipolar condition combined with the addiction is a whole new, another scenario. But you can get help medically first and then getting support to get therapy and counseling, and people have recovered. You will always be like that. And also for the addict or alcoholic to reach the point where they say, if I've reached the point where I just can't take another drink. I can't afford to because I know my life will just be messed up. There's also the notion that some people think, okay, I haven't drunk for, take my example. It's very easy for me to think and say, I'm 8 years with no alcohol. I think if I take one, I'll be okay. That is the most wrong thing you can do, because if you are an addict and reach that point, and you are an alcoholic, you reach that point, that part cannot change. If I take a drink now, I'll be back to where I was 8 years ago. It's not going to start like I'm starting afresh. No, it's progressive. It will even be worse. And that's why some people, when they relapse, the relapses are really bad. But we shouldn't give up. There is hope out there. People get better.
Wow, deep stuff. Thanks, Esther. Thank you, Esther, for sharing yourself and even sharing all these things that you have learned. Now, there's somebody who's wondering. So, if a person is able to remain sober for a week or two, but sometimes they drink themselves silly for weeks on end, is that an alcoholic, or what stage would that be? How do you classify that?
Okay, number one, if it was that same person asking that question, ask yourself, why are you asking that question? Because you know deep down there's something wrong. Yeah. The second thing, I remember when I was in rehab, and some cousins of mine who drink a lot had come to visit me, and they were so amazed, and they asked me, so how can I tell whether I'll reach where you reached? They were like, okay, first of all, because they had seen the way I went down and how I was looking better. And so I asked a simple question for anyone who drinks. Are you able to sit down somewhere and you put that glass of wine or that one beer, and you drink the beer, and when it's halfway, you walk away and say, I'm okay? If you can do that, then you're not an alcoholic at all. You're not. But if you sip, and the minute you sip, your mind is just telling you, bring another one, forget about it. You're on the way there. So are you able to control your drinking? If you can, and drink socially, there are many people who have 2 glasses of wine every day. They're not alcoholics because it's progressive. I would not be having 2 glasses of wine for what? That's too little. I would drink with my sister, and my sister would be, after 1 glass, she'd say, oh, Esther, it's time to go home. And I'm looking at her, what do you mean time to go home? I've already had mine, and mine is telling me this is just the beginning. Let us continue. That's my mind. I'm an alcoholic. She is not, because she can simply put the glass down, the bottle down, have to, and say goodbye, see you tomorrow. Alcoholics cannot do that. Once you start, you get that phenomenon. You start craving, and once you have the craving, you can't stop. Yeah. So the one who's having 2 weeks in between is trying to test themselves to see whether they are or not. But why are you testing yourself in the first place? You're trying to justify, and you're trying to look for reasons and say that I'm not an alcoholic. I can stay for 2 weeks, then I'm okay. I come back and I continue drinking. But it's progressive. So you'll come back and continue drinking, but it's just getting worse and worse. I hope I've answered that.
All right, thank you. Yes, Esther, I think you answered that very well. Somebody's asking, Saga, I think is asking, are some addictions inherited? And I think you kind of alluded to it having some genetic factor.
Yes.
Esther?
Okay. When I was in rehab, we went through a lot of sessions, and part of them was to understand why you're like that. You always ask yourself, surely, I'm really an alcoholic. I need to understand how I got here. So part of it is, they say that 40% of the reason that when you drink, you have that craving to continue, and others drink and they don't have it, is because it's genetic. The fact that when you start with a drink, you keep wanting more, you can't stop. That's the distinction. But other people, when they start, they can stop when they want. That is genetic. And actually, if you probably have an alcoholic in your family or whatever, if you trace back, we were even made to do a genealogy or something. And for me, I discovered, guess what? My grandfather died of liver cirrhosis. And me, I thought he was just sick. So the gene is there, but that's not the only reason. That's why I think they say 40% is because of your gene, because obviously my genes and my sister are the same, but hers is not. She doesn't have that thing that if she drinks, she wants more. Yeah. So part of it, yes, is genetic, why you're like that. And if you go back, if you look at any family that there's alcoholism, you'll trace back, there's an uncle, there's a grandparent, you go back, it will still be there.
All right. Thanks, Esther. I think we can maybe go on to something else, a little bit of, I see a question. I see Wafula's hand is up. Sorry, Nabu.
Can I just feel,
but before I take your question.
Okay.
Yes. Okay,
Huh?
you go,
Oh,
Nabu.
okay.
I have a question.
All right. Yeah, yeah. Mine was about cigarettes, and I started smoking. It was like social smoking in high school. And, let me puff a bit. Before I knew it, I was buying a cigarette. And by the time I got to fourth form, I used to have butts of cigarettes under the bed. And I used to have to wake up and light that butt of a cigarette and so on. To cut a long story short, I didn't stop even in university. Even when they said how to stop smoking in 7 days, it didn't stop. My roommate and I stopped for a week. He was a volleyball captain, I was basketball captain. We're saying this is a bad example. But after a week, we were cheating each other. He'd go to the bathroom, smoke, and come back. And cigarettes smell. So after a while, he said, we don't need to stop. Let's just go on. It took forever to actually stop smoking. When I went to UK, I found cigarettes were very expensive. It was also affecting my basketball. I couldn't jump as high. That's mentally, I said, no, you have to stop. So eventually, with a lot of willpower and name it, I stopped. But it was a very long journey. So Esther, I can see, I hear you. I hear you. And many people need to hear what you have shared, that it's possible to stop. It's possible to stop, but it takes the willpower, in my view, is the person, him or herself, to finally say, and then of course with the help of love, people who will get you from the gutter and take you home and give you a kiss, even when you're smelling like shit, and say, let's work on this, together. It takes that. Yeah. Thanks. Just thought I would share a bit of a testimony.
All right, thank you. Thank you, Nabutola. I see another question, and Lynette, she feels, a lot of focus has been on substance abuse, but in this era of VL, I'm not sure what VL is, for kids, her concern is around pornography, and leading to pornography addiction. Maybe can we discuss about this? Maybe some insights, Esther?
Addiction is addiction. It's the substance and the thing. So the pornography becomes an addiction. They can't do without it. They have to watch it every day, but it starts harming them, isn't it? So it's dangerous for them. It's the same principle, to accept that this is wrong. And when you're talking about pornography, do they understand it's wrong? Do they understand it's going to affect them? All these things that people are addicted to, the person going through them does not see the harm. And that's why they continue, because you're saying, I'm okay. I mean, why is my mom telling me about this? Everybody is doing it. So there's the other side of addictions where we need to create awareness of these addictions and the effects they have. What are the repercussions of your kids being addicted to pornography? What are the repercussions of people addicted to gambling? So it's the same principle. It's what are the effects? What can you do? There's always support for different types of addictions these days. Yeah, whatever people use to get out of alcohol and drug addiction is the same principle they can use to get out of cigarettes, to get out of food, to get out of, there's even debt. People say that, you're always taking money and your debts are just piling up, it's becoming bad. So again, it's the same principle. What is the addiction? And they need to accept that they have a problem with it, and how can you be able to support them and give them help to get out of it.
All right, thank you, Esther. And yes, maybe to add to that, I see VL is virtual learning for the kids. I guess now that they're all on the internet, and you can't say, oh, don't, you can't even put off the Wi-Fi and withdraw all these gadgets, not anymore. So I like that point. But the thing is, what you're saying, Esther, is the same. And I think it's just the awareness, passing it on, like letting them know, what, this is what, if this is what it results to. It's a choice. If you decide to start watching, I'm thinking this now for the children, it's more like letting them know what does it mean. If you make it a habit, then at some point it could result to something that is out of control. You might want it and not have it. Like for me, I'll tell them, what, you keep watching this, sex, you're not allowed to have it anyway. So even if, those clips that quickly come, don't even start, because you'll just want something. Shortly, you'll want, perhaps you'll be, here and there a bit, you'll want to masturbate. Before you know it, I mean, you'll want things that you can't have. So I guess it's just that awareness and talking about it, because I guess also in our culture, maybe talking about sex and this kind of things is not something maybe we've been too open to, but perhaps there are things to start talking around. Then I see there is also the part about unheard voices. Agevi Sagao is appreciating, okay, how do we get these unheard voices from these practical examples to the youth and more so young adults in school? So he's happy about how we are doing this. And I think for him, he's seeing this as something, it's a comment there in terms of how can this become something bigger? Because I think the need is there for whatever we've been discussing in this forum, and now specifically also today in today's topic. So that is food for thought. And I think we will also we'll want to hear responses, from other people, how we think it can, how we can make this bigger and better and reach more people. So the other, Esther, yes?
I'm saying, if I may just add, I think on these other types of addictions that affect our children, we never want to talk about them. The first thing you do as a parent is, I am not paying for Wi-Fi, you disconnect. But you don't sit down and talk to them and discuss these things, because they are there. There are parents who say, how can I start talking about this? Or maybe you feel, when you discover that actually your child is truly addicted to this, you're too embarrassed even to share with somebody else for you to be able to get help for your child. So I think it's to get the conversation going that we need to talk about these things. Otherwise, it's just going to get worse and worse. Yeah.
All right, thank you, Esther. All right, I think something else that I liked and I picked that Esther said also was the spiritual aspect, and I think as for myself, I've also realized that is very important, as much as, at some point in our lives, we might want to downplay it or we feel like that. But I think she talked about that spiritual connection and in terms of moving from their rock bottom and what it is in there. How do you deal with these addictions? I think there was a part of you must believe in a higher power, must believe in, something beyond yourself to pull you out. Maybe Esther, you could tell us a little bit around that part in terms of, that the recovery on that.
I think the spiritual aspect is more, I'll always remember when I was in rehab and we used to have these group sessions, and this guy just came and said, you know what, even if I teach you all these things, all of you are spiritually sick. You have nothing you believe in. So I looked at him and said, what do you mean I have nothing I believe in? And it's true. I had nothing I could believe in. I believed God had messed me up. And we have some certain beliefs that make us do these things to cover. So I guess the sense is believing in something that's higher than you. I am doing these things to satisfy me. We have a lot of self-centeredness, a lot of, I am drinking because it's me. I want to feel it has nothing to do with you. I don't care about the rest of the people around me. Even if I steal from you to get money to drink, it's for me. So there's that self thing. And so spirituality aspect comes in because you need to believe in something that's higher than yourself so that you can believe that you can actually get out of it. I think Wafula was talking about willpower. Sometimes you reach the point of the addiction where your willpower can't work. You're genuinely accepted that I need help. I have tried and it's just not working. So you need something higher than yourself to help you, because on your own you can't. And that's how the spiritual aspect comes, because when not to make it religion or whatever, but we all need to believe in some higher being, God, whatever it is. Yeah, and that's how they bring it in, so that you can say, yes, by myself I cannot. So once you start having that belief that by the time I was coming out of a rehab in 90 days, surely it can't be just the people who taught me some things. There must have been God working somewhere to help me get out of that. In whatever it is that we go through in life, we're going through COVID this time, but in this COVID situation, what are we putting our faith in? You must be having a faith that we shall get out of this, even if we don't know how. So that's how the spiritual aspect is really important, in believing in something higher than yourself, because we can no longer be depending on ourselves for everything. We need to depend on God, or whoever you want to, how you understand that.
All right. Thank you, Esther. I think we've pretty much looked at most of the questions that we have. So I think we can pick on any other questions. Or Esther, do you have something else you want to add? But I think maybe what, yes, Esther.
I saw a question about can the addiction, I don't know where the question is, but they were asking something like, can the addiction start because of your friends and because of peer pressure? And that is very true, because you see, I'm with my friends and all my friends are doing it, and I'm the only one who is not doing it. And because I'm the only one who's not doing it, then I feel left out. So to become together with my friends, I'm now inclined to do the same thing. But which goes back to, again, that how has that child been brought up to understand that these things are bad? So my friends are telling me we do this, but I remember my parents told me it's really dangerous to start smoking and start drinking. How can these people who haven't started influence, because they know that it's wrong? So yeah, peer pressure, everyone is doing it. Unfortunately, we live in a world that people, it's about me, don't tell me about you. So if I want to do this, and if you want to be with us, you either do it or you get out. So you tend to go with what people are doing, and in the process, you get into those bad habits and get into those addictions, because just simply because other people have started doing it.
All right. Perhaps any other questions? If I haven't picked on, I think I've seen most of the ones we've picked on, I think from but I think the other thing, Esther, maybe you could tell us is, so what keeps one going after recovery? After another rehab, what keeps, or even, after the transformation, what keeps one going and on track? Maybe, now the self-care.
I think it's to be with people who are like you, to network with people who are like you. So for me, I have many friends who have gone through the same thing like me. So if I get craving, or I'm feeling whatever down, it's easy for me to call them, because they'll understand where I'm coming from. So you can call them support groups if you want. So it's easy for me, because I know I'm not alone. Most addicts feel they're alone. And so when they come out and they've gotten help, and you're feeling, okay, fine, I'm sober, I've come back home, everyone is just looking at me, waiting for me to drink again. But if you start building a support system of people who are like you, then you're able to continue, one day at a time. And of course, by that time, the longer you are sober, the longer you have been, it's now becomes that you're more convicted that you don't want to do it again, because you can see the changes that your life are going through. I can't imagine taking a drink now. It's God willing, but the thought of a drink doesn't come to my mind these days. If I have an issue, there are other ways to deal with the issues. We all go through challenges in life. So those are the things, those support groups help you to deal with life as you're sober, say in my case, because your life when you were drinking was completely different. You had different friends, you had different things that you used to do. So you kind of are starting a new way of life, but you definitely need support from people who are like you, who have gone through the same thing.
Okay, and Hash is wondering, are there any positive addictions?
An addiction cannot be positive, because by the time it's an addiction, it means it is causing a problem in your life. Unless someone can give me an example, but I don't think there's anything like a positive addiction.
Okay.
Can I just want to tell you, I'm addicted to basketball. I just have to swing that ball.
But when you're addicted to basketball, is it causing problems in your life?
No, sometimes wife
So
said,
it's not an addiction. An
okay,
addiction will
yes,
cause problems in your life because of that thing that you're addicted to. So you love basketball. Continue
oh, I
loving
do.
basketball. It's not messing your life.
All right. Okay. So in this case, the addiction has to have the harmful aspect. Yeah. The
Yes.
thing that is, yes, that is not working as it should. All right. Then Brenda is wondering about the spirituality in this context. It's not the same as religion. If Esther, you could discuss that.
Maybe the best way I can do that is, let me use my example. Okay. So I didn't have any willpower myself to stop. I tried, I couldn't, right? And I went and got help. And this program was a spiritual program. And as I started remaining sober, I then realized that I'm not remaining sober because of my own willpower. And also, when you're drinking, you are the alcohol is what you're depending on. Yeah. So because I have this issue, the alcohol becomes I'm powerless over it, so to speak. So the alcohol controls me. That thing I'm addicted with is controlling me. It means it has power over me, isn't it? So when I stop drinking, I have nothing that's controlling me. I need to look into something else. And in that aspect, it's something higher than me, a higher being, a higher power, God, but not on my own. That's how the spirituality comes. And it's not, I don't want to mix spirituality and religion, but you can somebody can then realize that yes, it is, and I now believe in that higher power than me that is helping me stay sober. But in my case, I can relate this higher power that's helping me to God of being a Christian. Somebody else may relate to it in a different way. But the fact being that you have been using something else which has power over you, and now you're not using that something, you need something else to replace that power. And in most cases, it now comes in the spirituality because you're believing in something higher than you that's keeping you sober. I'm not using alcohol anymore. So there must be something higher than me, because on my own, for sure, I don't think so. So there must be higher than me that's helping me still be here today and still having not drunk all those years. But it takes one day at a time. I hope I've tried to answer that.
All right. Thank you, Esther. I see we are like, well, we are an hour now because I think we said about 40 past 7. But I see also there was, in terms of help is available. Which are are there any resources? Yeah, there's somebody who knows a neighbor who may need help. Which are some of the places to reach out, like if somebody needs help?
Okay, we have, for alcohol, you have 12-step support groups, which known as Alcoholics Anonymous. Actually, today, somebody has posted that today, that organization was started in 1935, 85 years ago, and the program simply helps people to deal with their alcohol by way of meeting. You go to AA meetings, and in that meeting, it's a 1-hour meeting, and the people who attend that meeting are people like you, and they follow some program called the 12 steps. And those 12 steps help you to change your life, help you to stay sober, help you to deal with the issues that you're going through. And this program has been successful all these years, that other addictions have adopted the 12-step support system. So you can hear about Narcotics Anonymous, which simply means the people going to that group are dealing with drugs. You can hear about codependency. Codependency is for people who have your husband has been drinking and has stopped and messed you yourself. Now you're messed up because you can't deal with your loved ones drinking. So the support group is to help you from that aspect of having people who are addicted, and how do you deal with that. So there are those type of support groups are growing in Kenya. AA, for example, has many meetings right now. Because of COVID, we have online meetings. And also, if you are not an alcoholic or an addict for NA, there are meetings that are called open meetings, where you can come and listen to how the meeting is done. So you can go and tell your loved one, why don't you try and go to an AA meeting? But normally, most of the meetings will be closed, meaning that it is for alcoholics or it's for addicts. But 12 support programs have helped many people the world over on different addictions based on the concept of Alcoholics Anonymous. And then again, sometimes your alcoholism and addiction is so bad, you need to go to rehab. Rehab puts you in some place where you can now reflect and come to that acceptance, that realization that yes, I need help, and they start giving you this basic foundation of what you need to get better. There are others, I mean, depends on how you go about it. Others have other underlying conditions. You would have to see a psychiatrist, you would have to see a counselor, you'd have to go through therapy. But 12-step support systems have been there forever, and they don't cost a single shilling. You just come for the meeting. So outside of this, I can share details of that. And once that person starts attending meeting, they'll be able to understand more how the 12-step support system works, and to be able to get help. Many people have recovered just by going to these meetings, and they encourage you to have something they call like a sponsor. And a sponsor is someone who's like you, who works with you and is able to help you. Most rehabs use 12-step programs. So when you go to rehab, you're being taught about the 12-step program. And so that when you come out, you're told, now continue and be associated with this support system that is already existing in place. And of course, if your issue is further and needs medical support first, then it's best to get those detoxes or see a doctor who can diagnose you and see that you're actually okay before you start going through the therapy and the counseling. Yeah.
Wow, thank you, Esther. I think we're pretty much done in terms of, questions. Let me see. I see somebody's wondering about starting the conversation with an addict without offending them and risking that they shut you out. How do you go about that?
The best way, please don't have the conversation from an accusing point of view. I've helped several people do it in different ways. Sometimes you start the conversation and you're talking from a place of love. Don't be angry, don't be annoyed. And maybe you're trying to offer them and say, would you be willing to talk to somebody, about what you're going through? All right. And then if they say no and are in denial, don't get angry, because no one is ever going to say, yes, I have a problem with alcohol, take me. No, they will not. They're still in denial. But you've planted a seed. The first time you have that conversation, they may not want to listen to you. But then what normally happens at some point, remember, it's progressive. Many times over, I've seen cases where the person was told, okay, why don't you talk to this person? They listen to the person, they say, hey, I don't think I've reached there. Or maybe they've reached a point where they're being suggested to go to rehab. They say, no, I can't go to rehab. And then there'll be a day something happens to them and they come back to you and they say, oh, you remember one time you called for me, this person to talk to? And there you go. So keep trying to plant the seed that they can get help, even if they don't say yes immediately. Come from a place of love. Don't come, where's my money? Where's what you stole from me? You came home late. You have to, and then try and have that conversation when they are sober, not when they are drunk or high on their drugs. Look for that small time, because what happens again when you're an addict in those periods of time when you're sobered and you're thinking of where am I getting the next one, you're really feeling remorseful, because deep down inside, you'll always be telling yourself, why again? I did it again. I tried. I got drunk. I messed up. What is all this? At that point, they may be willing to listen before they get to go and take their next drink or the next drug or whatever. Yeah. Talk from a place of love. Don't accuse them. Don't get annoyed. And also don't get annoyed if they get annoyed and tell you, leave me alone. Just leave them alone.
Powerful, powerful. Thank you. Thank you, Esther. I think, unless we have questions, maybe we have somebody who would like to say something. Esther, maybe I can let you close. I know you have a foundation. You have, maybe you can tell us about that. You can touch on that, what it is about. And then, yes, yeah, I guess we can go on from there, maybe.
So I would just like to, based on my experience, and after I've remained sober for a few years, but it's one day at a time. I've always gotten calls from people who say, oh, Esther, how did you do it? Can you help my son? Can you help my sister? And things like that. And I've gotten more conversation from mothers who are concerned either about their husband or their children. And so I felt that women suffer the brunt of addiction, and they are not the ones who are addicted. So my foundation is about helping women to be able to open up about what issues they're going through with their families or with their children or with themselves, so that they can be able to get the right help that they need. So the foundation is called Nina Gina Foundation. We're not doing so much right now, but the idea is to, I think you talked about self-awareness, is helping people not to feel shy of coming to say, you know, I'm Esther and I'm really need help. My husband is like this, or my child is like this. Most women, we wear a very nice mask. We look nice when we go to church, when we go to work. And if somebody looked at you, they'll say, oh, those ones have no problems. But deep down inside, we do go through many problems. So the foundation is really about helping people. And the other thing I also, maybe in closing, is that should anybody have, especially in the line of alcohol and drugs, have loved ones who have issues and you don't know what to do, I am available to have that conversation further, to be able to see how can you help your person. And maybe in closing is also to say, please don't give up on the person that you care about who's having these problems. Do not give up. They are not dead yet. Just keep praying. I remember my mother praying. I remember my neighbor praying. And one day I came, I was drunk, and I had them in a Bible study praying. You know, when you say prayer request, and I overheard them saying, Esther, my neighbor. And I wanted to knock on that door and say, how can you be praying about me? But guess what? See, those prayers must have been answered. So keep praying for them. Please don't give up on them. All is not lost. If I can get out of it, me personally, from my experience, anybody can get help. I've seen people who walk in asking for help and they look beaten, and you see them a year later and you cannot believe it's the same person. So let's not give up on the people we know, the people we love. Let's try and give them help. You yourself may not be able to give them the help they need, but you can reach out to people like us who can be able to direct you on how to get help for them. Yeah, and it's been a pleasure talking to you. You can always reach out to me outside of this.
Thank you, Esther. The big thing I'm left with is, I'm passionate about self-awareness, and for me is support groups. I keep hearing support groups, and I think already as we listen to this, there's a reason why we attended this. So I think it's in our circles to start thinking, how do we make those support groups? How do we make these mechanisms that this doesn't stop here, but it continues to overflow beyond us? Yes, and then also for us, still remembering, going back to, motivation. Jim Rohn says motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going on. So I think for us, you know, as we have these sessions, you know, we are learning different things, we are learning habits. I guess it's to keep on going and think around that. How do we make support groups around our environs? Thank you very much. I want to take this back to Esther, our host.
Can I volunteer to take over from Esther, who has had to step out?
Oh, yeah, sure.
Yeah, she stepped out. So I'm not a host, but I'm a host. So I don't know how that would work, but she's not there now. She whispered to me.
Excellent.
So I'll summarize just by saying this whole issue about addiction. It's really to recognize that it's a sickness like, I was going to say like COVID-19, but maybe not quite. It's a sickness. It can affect any one of us. Actually, it can affect or it can infect, you know, and in the end, if you can just appreciate that no one is immune to it, that you can, even the very best, the people, I liked what Esther said about, even the people you think are very happy and very what, they probably have a skeleton or 2 or 10 in the house, in their cupboards. And many people need help. And it's not easy for people to accept or to own up. I think that's the biggest challenge, that people don't want to own up because it's like a shame. It's embarrassing. William Levy, you know. Remember in the Bible, the first miracle Jesus made was what? Turning water into wine. And people sometimes go with that. I've seen people who drink, they say, if Jesus could turn water into wine, what are you telling me? You know, those kind of self-serving attitudes, you know, it's good for, you know, it's sort of like, how do you say it? It's self-justification. I think that's the word. You know, trying to justify why you're doing it. But truly, it harms a lot of people, family especially, the children, the husband, the wife, the family, the other people, and it's you can't condemn it. You can't condemn that person. That person needs help. So I'm so glad, Esther, that you could step in here. Thanks too for Mukuhi for organizing this. You know, you have you and your self-awareness. It's a big deal. It's a big deal because a lot of times we don't know that we don't know. You know, until somebody else says, "Hey, can you see something in there?" You know how, again, biblically, somebody is saying you have a log. Wafula Nabutola has a log in his eye, but he can't see the speck. He can see only the speck in the other person's eye. So many things. So I'm really grateful, and I'm glad that this is happening. I can see Marjorie. Maggie, you want to say something, I'm sure.
Okay. I am very encouraged, and Esther, thanks for allowing yourself to be vulnerable to share your story, because you know, there's stigma and most people are usually afraid. But the beauty about your story is that there's so much hope. I'd even forgotten. I don't know if I ever shared that one of my brother, we are 8 in the family. I'd even forgotten because one of my brother was an alcoholic. And, you know, in fact, he worked for Kenya Power and he was an engineer. He has done all manner of things, from selling the engine of my dad's car to, you know, luckily that time I was in the States. I'd forgotten, but I've remembered that, wow, it is so possible. We tried everything. I remember at some point my siblings and his wife then tried to, con him to go to Kenyatta. I think there's a doctor who handles stuff like that. The guy just walked out, you know? And now if you see this guy, he's a different human being. So Esther, there's a lot of hope, and thanks for coming in. Thanks to Mukuhe. Mukuhe, thanks for doing this. And yeah, there's a lot of hope. I was chatting up there about my neighbor's kid. I mean, this young boy, not young really, he's a teenager. So their tenants, they were living a house next to ours. And when they moved in, I noticed there's something weird about this guy. You know, he's always on his headphones, and you can tell he's high, literally, he's high as a kite. So I think I'll reach out to you, Esther. And I love the part where you talked about all of us have a role to play by loving on these guys. It's like discipleship, eh? Is that what they call it? Discipleship. So for me, I think, and I see, what's her name? Joyce was asking the question of how do you have the first conversation? I think it's like the way Jesus did. You know, he would call the 12 disciples and chill out with them. So if there was an alcoholic there, you can imagine eventually they would have to kind of like follow his path, yeah? So I feel like we all have a role to play by loving on these guys and not judging them. I think Wafula, you brought that out. Not judging them, because a lot of times, of course it's annoying, eh? You know, like I remember my dad, at some point he would call me in Boston, and I used to be so pissed because I'm like, this guy, we were not, in my family, you know, we were brought up differently. So we used to even wonder who bewitched this guy, you know? You know, all fun out things, you know, it's annoying. And by the time you're going to pick an item, I'm talking, no, I've forgotten. And now this guy is the sweetest dad, you know, sweetest dad to two kids. Sorry, my daughter is, sorry, misbehaving. So she's,
Is that
you know,
Amani or Imani?
Amani put his volume on the other side. Sorry. So, you know, there is hope. I think that's the bottom line. There's a lot of hope. Let's not judge them. Let's just love on them. In fact, Esther, I'll reach out to you maybe tomorrow. I connect you with Mama Michael, because this guy, I see him on the road. Sometimes I give him a lift. I mean, and she has the most beautiful kids. I mean, adults, yeah? But just that one son who maybe peer pressure and whatnot. So, and Esther, your story are on another end. There's, sorry, I can go on and on, but what I'm encouraged about you is that you allow yourself. So you can imagine there's an addict somewhere. Because of your story, they'll gather the courage and they'll pick them up and they'll be able to recover faster, as opposed to that stigma. You know, stigma is real, yeah? And people even secluding you. Nobody wants to talk to you because maybe you smell like Nabutola, what he was talking about, you know? So thank you so much, and thank you, Mukuhe. And yeah, I can go on and on, but I'm glad I made it tonight. And God bless you. And we hope that we can impact in our own way. I pray. That's always.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Harsh, are you in the house? Harsh?
Yes, I am.
Oh, cool.
Mukuhi, would you like Ash, please speak to these addicts?
Well, Hash, you have something to say?
Nabutola has already said what I wanted to say, so I've been a
Okay.
chain smoker, and I got rid of it just exactly like he did, with a very strong willpower. So I believe willpower is very important. And one of the things I personally feel about addictions is no matter what, I think intention is very important. So no matter what kind of support you get, but until the person is has serious intentions, it's very difficult to get him out, is my take. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you so much, everybody. And thank you for keeping it real. I mean, I think the more real we are, like, you know, yeah, Hash and Maggie, and keeping it real in business. Now, let's also keep it real in our personal lives, because I mean, we want to hang out with real people, you know, so that we talk real things, and some of this stigma will go, and it will, because at the end of the day, they destroy us if we don't point them out. So thank you very much. If you haven't given your email address, your contacts, kindly do so on the chat. Maggie? Oh, no, she's muted.
Sorry.
Oh, Jen.
No, I was just saying bye. I think it's really, I'm just perturbed. It was so nice, you know? It was so real. Thank you so much.
All right, thanks for coming, guys.
Thank you.
All right, then have a good night. See you on Friday. Yes,
Excellent.
Friday we have something going, 7:30. Okay.
Thank you.
All right.
Good night.
Good night. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye and thank you.